Well, it looks like it's about time to look at another Universal family film. And I have to admit, I've been lucky in that the films I've talked about haven't had some large elephant in the room I need to address. And I'm sure my streak will continue with the next one.
Bill Cosby, Ghost Dad, rated PG.
Me and my big mouth. But I guess it was inevitable at some point. As we've all found out in recent months, Hollywood is full of terrible people, and Bill Cosby's list of misdeeds is quite lengthy and well known. Needless to say, he's been proven to be not quite the charming, sweater-loving comedian people thought of him as. I know some of you probably want me to hurry up and talk about Ghost Dad, but it's kind of difficult to talk about a Bill Cosby-related project nowadays. Honestly, when it comes to Ghost Dad, the most notable element about it is not that Cosby stars in it, but rather that it was directed by Sidney Poitier. Is it okay if I prefer to remember you for In the Heat of the Night and A Patch of Blue? Because Ghost Dad is not a good movie. The movie is based around the simple concept of a father who becomes a ghost, and does not really do much of anything with it. It's the familiar storyline of the workaholic father who forgets about his children's birthdays, and then a magical occurrence happens that leads him to realize family is more important. And unless you're Steven Spielberg or Mary Poppins, can we please stop with this plot, because it rarely works. As I've often stated before, my issue with this cliché is that the children come across as ungrateful twerps. But, to its credit, Ghost Dad does depart from the formula a little bit. Because the father is a terrible person too. There is not a single likable character in this film. So there's already a separation, because I'm not invested in anyone. The other major problem is how the movie is constantly jumping through hoops and making up new rules as it goes along, and pretty ridiculous ones too, like Cosby being out of sync with his voice, which feels like an excuse for him to do his trademark silly faces and noises rather than for any particular story-based reason. Then there's the surprisingly nonchalant reaction from his children when they realize that their father is a ghost. There's no exploration on grief or loss. They're sad for a minute, and then it's back to comedic hijinks. Say what you will about the 1995 Casper movie, but that movie did make time to show the loss one feels after losing a loved one. Ghost Dad barely acknowledges it, so we really feel no emotional attachment or sympathy. Instead, the son whines about his school presentation, which involves trying to pull off a Houdini trick. Oh yes, the teachers are absolutely fine with that. No penalties or fear of the other students' safety if this goes wrong. The movie also has one of the worst twist reveals I've seen. I'm not going to say what it is because it's so ridiculous, but it's just another example of how lightly the film treats death and how convoluted the internal logic is. You know, it just hit me. I'm talking about a comedy, and I've not mentioned the jokes yet. Mainly because there's not much to say as they're not funny. Most of the film really is Bill Cosby making silly faces, occasionally getting angry at other people, especially his oldest daughter, and the movie thinking Cosby in an Invisible Man getup is comic gold. I do have to admit, I lightly chuckled at a few lines that children said, but it's telling the only halfway passable material is not given to your big comedy star. We also get a completely superfluous British ghost scientist whose entire role is to spout exposition about the wacky ghost rules and has lame jokes surrounding his name. Arnold Stang, who some of you may know is the voice of Top Cat in the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon, also shows up for a brief cameo, and is given standard ghost reaction bits to do. Oh, and a Satan-worshipping taxi driver has a couple of scenes. I don't know how this movie came together. I do get the sense Poitier had some enthusiasm surrounding it. It's just an altogether unendearing film that doesn't take any advantage of its concept. Ghost Dad is a stale and unfunny comedy that has probably aged even worse because of its lead actor. But don't worry, Ghost Dad will not be your legacy, Bill Cosby. Your legacy will be what a terrible person you are. Time's up.